bills. General township bills, we had $53,147.66. And I have a motion on that one.
Make a motion to approve the bills.
And a second.
Second.
Roll call for Gary.
Supervisor Bob Nowicki,
Yes.
Trustee Elizabeth Lindquist,
Yes.
Trustee Phil Reimer,
Yes.
Trustee Chuck Gilbert,
Yes.
and Trustee Pat Henderson.
Yes.
All right, next, the road bills. We had $72,857.29. Can I have a motion on that?
I had 847.
No, typo, 847.
847?
I'll second.
Okay, and a roll call now.
Supervisor Bob Nowicki,
Yes.
Trustee Elizabeth Lindquist,
Yes.
Trustee Phil Reimer,
Yes.
Trustee Chuck Gilbert,
Yes.
and Trustee Pat Henderson.
All right, next, the cemetery bills. $4,651.85. And a motion on that one to approve.
Make a motion to approve the cemetery bills.
And a second.
Second.
And a roll call for Gary.
Supervisor Bob Nowicki,
Yes.
Trustee Elizabeth Lindquist,
Yes.
Trustee Phil Reimer,
Yes.
Trustee Chuck Gilbert,
Yes.
and Trustee Pat Henderson.
All right, supervisor reports, fund and bank balances are all in the packets. And then on to new business. Approval of the general town tentative budget ordinance 2023-1-G. That should be in our packets.
So I just wanna jump in and say that I did make all the changes you guys wanted at the last meeting. So cleaning went from 3,600 to 6,000 for the community center, also the community center maintenance and repairs went from 1,500 to 12,000, utilities from 6K to 14,400. Also the assessor requested $6,500 additional for her appraisals because it's a quadrennial year. So total increase of 27,800, there were no changes to the road budget.
Okay, motion for that.
Ayes and nays.
So move.
All right,
Second.
okay. Roll call for Gary on that one.
I'm sorry.
Right, roll.
Supervisor Bob Nowicki,
Yes.
Trustee Elizabeth Lindquist,
Yes.
Trustee Phil Reimer,
Yes.
Trustee Chuck Gilbert,
Yes.
and Trustee Pat Henderson.
Yes.
All right, next is the approval of the road tentative budget ordinance 2023-1-R. Do we have any changes in that? I think Steve was good with it.
No changes there.
Okay, so we have a motion on that one.
So move.
Second?
Second.
And for Gary.
Supervisor Bob Nowicki,
Yes.
Trustee Elizabeth Lindquist,
Yes.
Trustee Phil Reimer,
Yes.
Trustee Chuck Gilbert,
Yes.
and Trustee Pat Henderson.
Yes.
All right, next one on is the review and discuss facility use policies. We had at the request of Chuck a meeting or two ago to work on a committee to work out some of the details. I think it fell on Elizabeth's lap.
Yeah, well, Chuck and I, and Mary met once. Hassel's right, I don't know if there's enough for two people might have to share. And you could each take one of these, I think there's enough for everyone, one from each pile. So, there is a lot to think about, when developing a facility use policy, and agreement for this community center. I kind of threw together a bunch of thoughts in this is kind of the main, the Founders Park Community Center use policy agreement development discussion points. I kind of threw the ideas together into several different topics: scheduling, rental fees, payments, rules, and then terms and conditions, which is more like legalese stuff. I passed, what was also passed around was, you've got either a copy of Rockton's policy, and agreement, or you've got the one that I already started editing, making a Founder's Park one. Were there any extras of either one of those documents that were passed around?
I got two. I got Founder's
I
Park
can give you
Community
mine.
Center.
You not have it.
No, that's okay. No, I think we can work with what we got, yeah. So, the two separate policies, for Plainfield and either Rockton or my edited version for us, kind of show how you can do this quite a bit differently. You can either have like a much more elaborate, agreement or a much more basic one. You know, Plainfield's is very elaborate, Rockton's is very basic. And so, but that's just the agreement, that's just talking about the form. Plainfield also has a fairly, I know I lost that, sorry, I got off the work late and was.
Yeah, there's an extra Plainfield.
Is there a Plainfield that isn't the agreement? Does somebody have a Plainfield that says that it's that, yeah,
The usage policy.
yeah, hand that back over.
No, really.
Well, you can have it back,
Yeah.
actually, I don't need it, just hold
No.
on to it.
No,
Is that the only one?
That's the only one, yeah, maybe you should make copies of that, why don't you make, like, do we need copies of the, do you think everybody
Rhonda
should?
needs a copy, the book needs a copy of anything that's handed out tonight, so that you gotta keep that in mind, that I'll have to have a copy
Okay,
of one of everything that gets handed out tonight.
okay, we can copy that too. So there are just so many different issues involved in this. And the fact that we're gonna allow people to rent it for weddings is kind of like the biggest, big thing. But kind of the first, and I just kind of wanna go through these and then talk about them, but just so you can kind of get an idea of everything that we've got to think about. In terms of scheduling, you know, our first priority in scheduling, I'm sure we all agree, should be township-sponsored events and township-led activities that will be primarily, and those will be, as
Was this
previous.
your input, or was this coming from any other community center? There's these priorities.
This is based on all of our previous discussions.
Oh, okay.
These are just like ideas that I had that I put on paper. Everything is like, it's just to generate discussion and further discussion.
Yeah.
No decisions, I'm not pretending to have made any decisions. I just tried to organize all the things that we need to be thinking about moving forward. So we township-sponsored and township-led senior activities, township-sponsored volunteer-led classes. You know, we've asked the community to volunteer to lead classes. And then going down to the third, why don't, my bullet points aren't right, okay. Third would be nonprofit rentals, like, you know, like a book club that wants to rent it for whatever, or, you know, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, whatever. Fourth priority, I think, should be parties and weddings. And then fifth, typo, would be for-profit rentals. Although, in thinking about for-profit rentals, the Dry Grove Township community building, they restrict their use of their premises to public or private events as not intended as a business, and this is like quote right out of their policy, not intended as a business venue, the charging of admission or use as a profit-making venue is restricted, charitable events or benefits require prior approval and proper documentation of event proceeds. We may want to think about that, I don't know, again, just throwing it out there. Plainfield Township has a pretty thorough discussion of nonprofits in the area, and they have different distinctions for affiliate groups. So they have affiliate groups that they give preferred pricing to, The only thing that I would think that would be comparable to with what they do is for us, the Historical Society. They also give priority to Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and some senior groups. We might wanna think about that. And it gets really complicated though, it's outlined in their policy and it gets like really complicated. Rockton does nothing like that. We need to think about a rental scheduling window, how far out people can schedule, and the big thing with that is weddings, because the only thing that people are gonna like wanna schedule way far out is weddings. I think, although, you know, if they're having a family reunion party, something like that, they may wanna do that too. We have to think about building availability hours. We have to think about a rental limit. We don't want, I don't think, we want one group renting it every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. for the next, indefinitely, you know. So most organizations have some kind of limit, like you can rent it for 3 months at a time, but you can only do 3 months at a time. I think we need to think about a self-service online scheduling system, where we would have all the options that aren't available, you know, blocked out, so people could not choose those. So those are the kind of general scheduling ideas that I think we need to discuss.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
Is there an approval process on any of these community agreements that you know of? In other words, final approval is submitted to someone that we may designate from the board or someone here from the office? We have to, I think we would have to have some form of approval to.
Yeah, and that would be at least in Plainfield, it is the facility manager or the township's, I would think it would be the facility manager or the township supervisor, so Mary or Bob would, they have their, cause I started like redoing the Plainfield policy, like tweak it for us, and they do have a lot of things in there, like if you want a waiver from this, you need approval of the facility manager or the township supervisor, that kind of thing, so that's something that we could discuss.
Yep.
If I could jump in, one thing that we currently do is our sports and recreational reservations. We do the soccer, baseball, no more football, but it's basically Little League and softball and soccer. So we have a system set up for that. And last year Mary handled it, the year before that I handled it, and I think Mary handled it the years before that. Not sure why I stepped in one year. Thought they just wanted to give Bob some fun.
So you learned.
And yeah, it was a great learning experience. I got to see how it worked, and that year everything fell into place. So we have a procedure. We had a form, and that's what we're looking at doing now is the form. Because I assume you're asking approval of the form or approval of the users of this facility.
Approval of the user.
Okay. So yeah, I think down the road we do not want to be as a board approving every user. That'd be crazy, and it's only once a month that we meet, so it'd be almost impossible. So I think there would be I think Mary would be, and that's one reason Mary is with us part-time, was to continue and help at the community center. So she can do sports reservations, and then we can, and I think somebody will work with her and make sure it's going smoothly, because we don't want a snafu at all.
The Plainfield policy does, delineate, because obviously it's easier to have a policy address these issues ahead of time than deal with, you know, things later. But I think there's some kind of language in there about what kind of groups that, like,
I mean,
you know, I
adult
mean.
entertainment, you look at political stuff, I think we should stay away from political myself, but anyway.
Well, I don't think we wanna be too restrictive.
Well, I think you need to look at the grant and see what it says, because I believe political, organizations are exempt from using
Public,
They are,
for park-funded properties, yeah.
I would think
like,
so.
you literally can't rent, we couldn't
Not
rent
for
the
fundraising,
pavilion
not
to a
not
group to have a picnic?
Not to have a political fundraiser. I don't
Well,
think so.
fundraiser, no, I'm not talking about fundraiser, what if they were having a picnic, we need to look at that.
Yes.
So we would need to look at the grant and see exactly what it says, how it restricts group usage.
And that's how we would have to draft our policy for the rental.
Right, right.
I just think of controversial things that we wanna stay away from, religion, politics, do we get into favoritism, or we gotta stay
Well,
away
I think that is very important when it comes to township-led activities. You know, if they want Mary to, lead a Bible study, I mean, we're not gonna do that. But if a religious group wanted to, I mean, they probably wouldn't, because they have churches, but, yeah. But we can, that's the kind of other thing that we have to look at.
What exclusions, you look at some of these other agreements, what exclusions did some of the other organizations have?
Rockton says almost nothing about any of, I mean, Rockton's is very, they just rent to anybody.
I think this would be a question for Tom, is our rental agreement would have a clause in there that gives us a way out.
I would think you should.
Something crazy comes down the line.
Within the last month, I had a situation where a venue was rented, without disclosing necessarily the extent of the use, and it ultimately was the type of use that was going to get aggressive negative picketing out in front of the facility and so on and so forth. And the venue didn't realize that and said, we're canceling the event. We're not canceling the event. You can have it. You just can't have it. You'll have to reschedule it.
Yeah.
And so I can suggest to you there are extremes like the Nazi party or something where you're probably gonna say, yeah, that's not the kind of thing we wanna have here. But on the other hand, having somebody hold a debate between two candidates for mayor, I don't know, that's kind of equal, that's kind of even, but that's another kind of thing where you're not favoring one or the other, it's just a debate. Do they wanna have it there? So, yeah, this can be a slippery slope, it can be a difficult kind of situation.
Yeah, I think, obviously, definitely, the grant, is gonna determine everything, and then we can decide, this group can decide what they wanna do. I don't see it right now, but I thought Plainfield had some kind of language in there. So yeah, and then the other thing, so controversial groups, and the other, I don't know what anybody, when you look at most of these agreements, they designate between nonprofit and for-profit entities. I can't imagine any for-profit entity would want to go in there and literally sell stuff. But I think we should think about what we would allow.
I mean, in that spectrum, you could have somebody organizing a craft show, and the crafters who rent a booth space would be selling. So it could be for profit. I don't know. You look at it a lot of different ways.
Yeah, we don't wanna not allow a craft show.
No.
And I mean, we wanna be able to have an outdoor market, so, yeah.
I think we wanna be,
So we need language in there that allows.
I think we wanna be flexible, but maybe have a clause in there that says anything deemed suspicious or controversial needs approval.
Well, or
From our legal team.
See,
the
that's why I brought up.
the board reserves the rights.
Yes, they all have language like that. The board reserves the right, yes.
That's what I was asking. So there's a clause to,
But I think the key is, in the situation where I just explained, where they ended up booking it and having to cancel it, they didn't ask the question. There was a little bit of misleading. It was like, oh, we're renting it as a group of 40 people, and what's gonna happen to that? And they really didn't describe it. Then when the newspaper called and said, oh, I see you're hosting this event, are you in favor of this sort of conduct? And blah, 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 they're like, what sort of conduct? Well, you're having a rally for whatever. And then they called me and said, we don't want to have this. I mean, we neither oppose nor favor it. We just want to stay out of it. And they ended up, because there was no deposit and there was no contract signed, they simply said, the venue's not going to be available in the community. We're going to have a contract. That contract needs to, one, ask the question, exactly what is it you plan to do there? So city no, and then, the, board always reserves the right to cancel, or
Yeah, they all
not
have that.
canceling the event, cause they can always move the event somewhere else.
Right,
or
right.
You're, determined that the venue will be unavailable for that event.
So the point was made that we have to follow the guidelines of the grant, and I think we also have to follow, the Village of Roscoe, because we annexed into them.
Right.
So, I guess whatever we come up with, we probably wanna run past Scott Sanders and make sure it is, similar to how they rent out Porter Park. So, when it comes to certain things, I don't know what restrictions they would have within the village, but they've got ordinances too.
So who's gonna pursue that? Would you like me to pursue that with him?
I think somebody that's on this committee, whether you or Elizabeth, or
Elizabeth, we can go see him together?
Sure.
All right, then you know,
Was there extras of anything that went by?
no.
we got
Most
as
of this
far
I
as I-
printed at
Well,
home.
there was
The, reservation request, there's a couple extra Plainfield reservation requests.
Oh, can you pass those back down here just so that.
Oh, wait, hold on. Guess we need one of them.
They're stealing Chuck's.
That's quite all right.
Somebody either needs to leave it on the table or let me have it at the end because we.
Yes, I will make sure you get everything.
Okay, 'cause we
Yes.
gotta have these for the book.
Well, if they have an ordinance prohibiting anything, we are in the, we're in the village ordinance. So we do have to abide by the village ordinance. I think
Liquor
that's-
permits being one, right? Liquor
Back to
permits.
And I can't imagine
Sorry,
that,
Bob, I'm trying
I
to
just,
catch up.
I just can't
Yeah.
imagine that there are that
Alcohol
many
use, the village
ordinances that the village has that are, this group can't hold events.
I don't think-
What we're gonna run into is like with them, and this is when is our use times, right? I mean, have they imposed upon us anything
Hours
like
of
when the?
operation,
hours of operation?
noise, security, and probably liquor law stuff.
Parking, the liquor
Parking.
law, that's a big one.
Yeah.
So those would be the ones we'd have
Yeah.
to make sure we're good with them.
I'll contact Elizabeth and we'll set up.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I don't want to have anything to do with them if I can't have a beer.
So, the other big kind of thing we need to think about, and I don't, we're not gonna decide all this tonight, but this is kind of like thinking about ideas. Right, yeah, we'd be here all night. Fees, okay, so I think we need to set up 3 different types of fees. Fees for community meetings and events, that in my mind you could define by there's no use of the kitchen. We could limit the number of people at those events if we wanted to.
One little comment about using the term kitchen. For the health department, we cannot use that term for that.
Yeah, we have a
Just so
sink
you
and a
know, if you start
refrigerator.
using it in meetings,
And the
Yeah.
refrigerator
Notice
is,
No fridge.
We don't, we're gonna have a fridge though, aren't we?
well, yeah.
We're gonna have
after,
soda,
after,
we're gonna have a soda cooler.
after the
We
inspection.
are going to have a soda cooler. It's going
What the
to,
hell does that mean, Mary?
Okay,
it's gonna cool soda.
It's a code. It's a
So I
big soda
think-
cooler.
I think community
like of the
meeting
commercials?
fees,
Yeah, where they slide this, one door slides this.
The Kardashians.
I think
You know,
community
control.
meeting fees need to be kind of in line with other community rooms that people might be renting in the area. So yes, that would include, the Rockton Community Center, but it would also include the libraries. So I included in this document the fees that various libraries charge for meetings. The North Suburban Library, both here and in Loves Park, their meeting rooms aren't open anymore. The Loves Park meeting room, I know the big meeting room used to be $100, and the big meeting room in Roscoe, which isn't very big, used to be $50. The Talcott Library lets people use their Kiefer meeting room totally for free. And I found a couple of meeting rooms in Rockford that were like similar capacity, and they don't charge much for them. The basement Black Box Theater at the Nordloff is only $30 an hour for weekends and $40 an hour for weekends. So I came up with these kind of like, just thinking about what we should charge kind of thing. And we definitely want to be, for a variety of reasons, I think we want to charge more for Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And so I kind of broke it up into Saturday, Friday, and Sunday, and then Monday through Thursday, and just threw those figures out there. You know, we can think about them. The other kind of big ball of events would be like social events that aren't weddings. So showers, parties, reunions, dinners with food, so that they would be using that
Prep area.
prepped area, okay,
Staging area.
prepped area.
I like that.
And I do think that, and I've reserved a variety of rooms at a variety of different places, you know, all over here, and I do think it's a good idea to have a minimum of 2-hour thing for
I would agree.
groups, because that gives them time to set up and break down. You can't reserve a room for an hour-long meeting and be in and out of there in an hour. So that's why I put that 2-hour minimum on there. And I think that having a 3-hour minimum would be a good idea for parties, showers, etc. So I threw together some numbers there that were kind of based more on the Rockton. So Rockton just rents their community center for a whole day. That's it. Like, you just rent, you want it for an hour, you rent it for the whole day. You pay $150 if you're a resident. I can say that I've rented that place a few times and I'm not a resident, and they never charged me the non-resident fee. So they're nice about that. But that's kind of where I got those per hour dollars. And so the other really big thing is weddings. And that's why Mary got the pricing for for Williams Tree Farm. And I kind of looked at those prices and made our prices roughly a third, made our non-resident price roughly a third of theirs, because they have seating for table and chair, dining seating for 300, and we only have 117. So, and then you get those all the whole day, but you can get, all their places are 9 a.m. to midnight. All their rentals are 9 a.m. to midnight. But it seems like everybody's gonna want Saturdays, and so Bob had the idea of, if we always, all our weddings are just noon to midnight on Saturdays, we would still have the space available in the mornings. So, yeah.
Correct. So if somebody
This
wanted
is-
to, go ahead. I was just gonna add to that, I spoke with Elizabeth on that, and a wedding venue came up to me and suggested that. Cause I said, how do we balance between a wedding and an 80th birthday party? And that's where she came up with and said, have your wedding start at noon and go to midnight or 1 a.m. or whatever you have it. But the birthday party could be at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning and be out of there by noon. So she says you can accommodate both that way, so that you're not making it exclusively a Saturday wedding venue. Because, and I'll just say, she told me that what we have, it is small, but she said it is new and it is nice, and everybody's gonna want it for small weddings. So we didn't build it for that reason. So
Right,
I think by just kind of splitting up that Saturday, it still lets somebody use it Saturday morning for 3 hours, for 4 hours, whenever they want to start on a Saturday morning. So I think that's a fair way to look at it.
Bob, what do you have for the township for like tables and chairs and audio-visual equipment?
We are ready to pull the trigger on tables and chairs. I think the order is in the
Like whether
cards.
you get rectangles or ovals,
Rectangles.
depending on what event is happening, right? If it's a wedding event or something like that, I would assume that it'd be round tops. But for a business meeting, it'd be rectangle tops. And, we have audio-visual equipment for all of that. So if I was gonna book as a client, let's say a business, I wanted to book a meeting there, how would I know that I've got visual and audio equipment there?
Well, let me stop you for 1 second.
I'm
with
just
a question.
asking, yeah.
So I don't know if we're jumping ahead with this question. If we can talk about this for a minute, because we're in the middle of what Elizabeth had.
Yeah,
Why
I'm
don't we
sorry,
why don't we-
I'm sorry, I'm late.
Yeah, why don't we pick up where
Good
you're
stuff.
asking at the end of Elizabeth's talk?
Okay, perfect. that works for me.
Chuck?
I think we should have an open discussion on fees, right? And as a, obviously, township board, community center, where we like as many people to use that facility as possible to serve every organization, every citizen in this township. Is it our philosophy when we set fees to break even? Is our philosophy to make money? Is our philosophy to make this much money or this much money? I think it's a good discussion to determine what are the appropriate fees for the philosophy we're going in, and maybe get that same philosophy from other communities. Obviously, we have expenses, right? Heat, electrical, all that kind of stuff. Do we expect to pay for that, or do we recoup those costs from the use of this facility? Do we expect to make money, and therefore, I'm not in favor of that, you know, we break even kind of thing, that's where my head's at, but I think we should just talk about, so we're all on the same page here, is how we set those fees, and what our, whatever guideline is for the people we serve.
No, I agree with you 100%, Chuck. I don't think we should be making money because that's not our job. I think we should be setting fees that cover costs. And we just go from there. If it's a zero-sum game, if we're like net zero income, then we're doing a good job.
And
If
see,
we're
the difficulty
losing
the
money,
first-
we're doing a bad job.
The difficulty
If we're
first is-
making money, we're ripping people off.
Right, I agree. The difficulty is we don't have what our expenses are, we don't know what heat and electricity and all that kind of stuff during the first year, or do we have an estimate? So, again, I think that should be an overlying conversation thinking when we start establishing these fees
Well,
and usage.
your question on, do we have an estimate? Well, yes, we do, we approved that. Tentative budget, it's in there.
27,000, right?
So, and that's a guesstimate, we don't know.
Right.
Next
That's
year,
my
we'll
point.
have a way better idea what this thing costs.
But
So far, it's costing more than I had hoped, but
And the it's $27 annual utility, et cetera, et cetera.
that what it was. But to get back to you, I would hope that I would love for it to break even. Do I expect it to in the first couple of years? No. But I also want to remind the board that any net income above and beyond our expenses has to be reinvested into the program or building itself for 20
That's
years.
exactly what we do. Okay, I think I feel better about where we're going forward here, if we all in that basic understanding that that's how we want to establish fees and operate this facility.
And we can always adjust and change, can't we, every year if we see what things
That's
are?
correct.
So we're,
Our expenses and our
Yeah.
usage, right? How much
Yeah.
money we collect every year.
or how popular it becomes.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Right.
yeah,
Cause I'm sure every community center is different, right? From how many uses it, what they charge, and what their expenses and the square footage and all that kind of stuff. So we're gonna have to customize it to our.
Not really, Chuck. If you go through that stuff that I printed on all the townships that have community centers, they run, usually, they're anywhere from $75 to $300. That was it.
But nobody has, I don't
That's for booking,
know that
right?
any of those
No,
facilities.
the one that,
Yeah.
the one, is it Plainfield that comes the closest?
No, because Plainfield doesn't actually have a big room that, and I don't think
There's
they
one
allow
that
alcohol,
has-
so they
there's-
don't do weddings.
There's
basically.
one that has
Chatham.
almost.
I think
No, it
Chatham is
starts
the
with
one
a
that-
P.
There was one that I thought was fairly similar to us.
Cause they have the pavilion, they have.
Oh, yeah. what
Oh,
was
yeah,
the
that
other
was
one?
kind of in the middle
I
here.
thought it started with a
Beloit,
P.
Riverside, my daughter rented that, 2 days they gave her for $300.
Yeah, Foster
And she held a
Township is
wedding
what
there.
it is, Elizabeth.
What was that?
Can I
It's
stop?
Foster Township.
Foster, okay.
Can I stop the meeting for 1 second? Gary is recording this, so we really need to stick with one person talking at a time. Cause it's, just for Gary's sake, I can handle more than one, but Gary's gotta transcribe this later, so let's keep it orderly so that Gary can figure out who's actually talking. So, go ahead.
There are, I would just say that there are very few townships that have a facility as nice as this, that is being used this way, that has this size room. Mary printed out a bunch of information about a lot of places. We've got Rockton and Plainfield, but none of them is exactly like ours, in that it's a new place that is basically one big room. You know, a lot of them have smaller rooms, or they're not as nice, or they're older. And so that one still doesn't charge much. Foster, is that what you're saying it was?
Yes,
Foster, they have a hall with seating for 100 that they charge people, there's a $50 deposit and it's $50 to rent. They're in Alton. I don't know what Alton is like. I think it is it in the middle of nowhere? It's not? I don't know.
Opposite St. Louis.
I don't know how big it is. Was it anywhere near as nice as ours?
But it's 4 hours. That's why we decided not to road trip.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
It was what, Mary? It
4
was,
hours.
I think if we try to rent, I think if we put the fee for weddings too low, we're only gonna have weddings. I mean, the reason for making the wedding fee higher is to limit the use. Because it can only be used so much, you know, and the primary purpose of this place is not to just have weddings. And so even though we have one big room, we want that one big room to be available for small groups. It's not like we have it's not like we have rooms that can be, a room that can be divided up. And so we're gonna be renting this same space to a small group for the same space.
Same prices.
We can't rent it at the same price as a big wedding, even though we're renting the same space. That's the kind of the dilemma that we have. We have one space that's gonna be used in different ways, and we really need to charge people based on the use and the number of people that are using it, not the fact that they're there, you know, because they all get this one really nice space.
I totally agree with that.
I'm a big fan for the difference between profit and nonprofit use. I think nonprofit, we get a lower rate than profit. I mean, I see
Right,
that
we've
today.
got that in all,
I'm struggling a little bit with the resident and non-resident, because how do you really qualify that, and how do you police that?
their
Well,
township.
whether they live in
Their
Roscoe
township.
Township, and I do
Okay.
think,
It's my daughter's wedding, but I don't live in the township, but I'm at Gary's in the wedding party, so why don't you fill out the form?
then he fills out the form. Same with like community groups. If you have a book club and all of your members are in Rockton, but you live in Roscoe Township, well, then you fill out the form and you get the resident rate. I think if we don't, I think we need to provide some benefit, to our residents.
I agree.
Residents of
I
Roscoe
just wanna
Township
make
who are,
sure we
yeah.
have a way to.
Chuck, you have to stop and think to yourself, and I know we as this age of adults aren't gonna stop and think about it, but if I'm 30 years old and somebody comes to me and says, I wanna have a party, but I'm not a Roscoe resident, and I want the discount, will you sign? No, I'm not taking the responsibility of you guys trashing the place.
But it will happen.
It will happen,
And
but
we really have no way to stop that. I mean, you know, we're not gonna go check IDs, who's getting married now, it's the mother-in-law, whoever reserves it, they're signing the contract.
Right, it's whoever signs it.
And that's gonna happen. I know a lot of the wedding venues around here, it is very trendy, for people in Chicago to have their weddings out here, cause it's affordable. And I've heard this from Tracy, Tracy Cam, that it's the place to do it, cause in Chicago, it's crazy rates. So they all like coming out here. They like to have a rustic wedding in Roscoe.
John, in the figuring for their expenses, was cleaning considered in those expenses?
gosh, you know, they're working out.
Yeah, cleaning is in the budget, yes, it's in the budget.
That's gonna
yes.
be a function of everybody who uses it.
Well,
Well,
wouldn't
cost.
you charge a cleaning fee though? I mean,
well, I think
especially for big events?
Some places.
I think we should,
Lloyd, when we cleaned it up from the wedding, we got our deposit back.
Yeah.
right, I think if the people leave it in
Yeah.
the same state that they found it in,
Correct.
you get your deposit back. I mean, that's definitely how Rockton is.
Yes, when I rented the American Legion, we paid a deposit and, we didn't clean it, they kept it, we stayed, we cleaned it.
Yeah,
You remember how much the deposit was? $100?
I believe it was at least 200.
It's just a guy,
That would
right,
be
that we all look at.
12 years ago.
That is an expense.
You gotta make it big enough that they
Yes.
wanna turn around and clean up rather than leave it.
right,
If you make it
Yes.
too cheap, they'll just say,
It's $100, yeah.
It's
Right.
better that they clean it.
I agree.
In order to get your
Right, we
deposit
don't
back.
wanna mess around with having to
No,
get somebody
that's a
out
great
there to
idea.
clean it in
Yeah.
Okay,
the
So then
time
you
frame
gotta-
that,
One at a
Gotta make
time.
that, gotta make that high enough to make people to wanna do it.
Porter cabin is $75 with a $75 deposit, which is the village of Roscoe. It's half our size. I think we looked it up today for capacity. So, yeah, it's 75 with a $75 deposit. But it's not the same size, so we gotta keep that in perspective, because whoever said if it's not big enough, they might just say, heck, for that price, let's just leave it. So we don't want that.
Well, I was just gonna comment, I don't know if you looked at the pavilion at Albany, it's about twice the size of ours, I believe it's about 5,000. But, it's publicly owned, I mean, it's a taxing body that owns it, and I guarantee you they have a comprehensive contract. Just occurred to me.
I didn't look at all the.
Check the Rockford Park District's contract for the pavilion at Albany. And I've been to celebrations of life
Like
there. I've been
Riverside
to,
as well.
Well, parties after.
It's about the same size as our
After the
building.
golf event, yeah. It's any number.
Well, yeah,
And I know they do
there's a
weddings.
lot of
I
time.
looked on their website.
Now,
Pat,
good
I
research.
think what you need to do is make sure your deposit's tall enough, because if you do decide to rent it, you can afford to leave a deposit in order to make sure that building is correctly returned to you. Clean, so you got your costs covered.
So you have someone go in there and inspect it after they clean it, and let's say it's $500. Well, no, you didn't clean it the way you left it, so now we're gonna give you $400 back. Do you get into that kind of conversation?
That happens.
I'm sure it would. One of those things, right? We'll have to deal with it.
The other thing I would suggest that we talked about in the office the other day is a cash deposit, because, people have been known to
Well,
cancel
the-
their card.
You get
You know,
emergency
A lot
back
of
if you
places
don't
I
do it
ran are
right.
cash deposits,
They've been known to what?
cancel their card.
or the check doesn't.
Like you cancel your credit card in order to avoid having to.
It happens, trust me. It does happen.
Okay,
Yes,
I
it does
got it.
happen.
Yeah.
Well,
But if you,
prepare
but
for
if
the
you
worst.
put a whole, like, if you, I couldn't remember what you said about this at our meeting, Mary. But if you put that hold, wait a minute, if you put a hold of like $500 on their card, pending the outcome of this, you can, if they cancel the card, then that charge doesn't go through?
No. I tried doing it with Michael. I tried buying a new car and I put all his information
Yeah.
on my thing and they denied it.
well,
My rates
I do think.
I think once you hold that money,
Yeah,
it's
it's there.
there.
We don't even
Well, we
tell
don't think
companies
so.
that.
Anyway,
But Mary, what did you say at our meeting about this?
Well,
About the whole deposit and refund business?
I gotta change gears, because at the time we were talking, us three, I had just gotten SENB saying that it would be 3 to 5% and da-da-da, and we don't wanna pay that kind of money. But now SENB gave me another company that they're doing business with, and it's a per swipe charge, much more reasonable for us to get into. I can call her tomorrow and ask her this question, because I don't know it myself. All that her and I have talked about was it's per swipe now charge. Dawn looked at it, it was very affordable now to us, is because we don't pay unless we use a credit card. So if somebody wants to write us a check, then it's fine, and if somebody wants to hand us cash, that in itself is fine also. But if we do swipe the card, then we pay, do you remember, Dawn?
That'd be 3%.
It was,
So you're gonna pay
Yeah,
3 or 4%
I think
If
so.
not
on
more.
top of that.
say 3.5,
For the
it was
credit
like
card.
that ballpark.
3.5.
But if we use it, then we pay, and if we don't, the other one was so much per month to have it and have the convenience and da-da-da, and
Okay,
this is.
so we're okay with taking credit cards, we think, for now.
Well, I'm working on it.
You're working on it, right?
So
You
people
think
are
there's
charging
gonna be
you
a
to
way.
swipe your card now.
Yes.
Oh, we're lucky to not have to pay monthly fees. When I ran a business, it was a monthly fee plus a percentage.
Oh, I know.
So what she's looking at doesn't have a monthly fee, but there is a percentage per swipe.
The only charge would be is to either rent the machine or buy it for $275 outright.
The
guys
But
have
not a
justified.
lot of people are set up for like an ACH transfer, right?
No.
That you've talked to.
And I would also suggest taking that fee on to the customer.
Deposit.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I don't
Everybody's
know,
going.
I think credit cards are like a thing and
They're
the
charging
business
you for-
needs to accept, I mean,
Liz,
we should factor that into the price.
when I go out and I buy stuff, it's like all ACH now. It's like bank transfer. Credit cards are on the outs, they're charging 4 to 6%, to run a
So we're
credit card.
talking about debit cards, is that what you're
No,
saying?
we're talking like bank transfers,
Or debit cards, because that's, you know. a
or,
lot of people-
or a debit.
DHL
Yeah, you're
does it
right.
right now. They'll ask you if you're gonna pay cash or with your card.
No, it's
If you pay
crazy
card,
right
you
now.
get the 3.5%
Yep.
increase.
Well,
Sam's does it too.
they're
Sam's
taxing
does
you
it
on,
too.
they're hitting you for the credit card fees, cause let me tell you,
That's
as
good.
a prior merchant, credit cards are impossible to figure out when they say, oh, I wanna come in and have an appointment with you to tell you how I can save you money. It's so complicated because every card has a different rate too.
Right.
And then
Every
there's,
company you use.
yeah, so all
And
these private,
to your point, there's businesses that don't accept certain credit cards.
because
Like
they're too
an
expensive.
American Express
And
versus
Discover.
a Visa or something like that.
Discover
They
and
just
American
don't
Express
accept
were
it.
the two
Yeah.
worst. Yeah, it's complicated, and buying machine,
I
leasing
like that being
machine.
cash.
So you're gonna have to figure out a percentage, right?
Yeah.
To, when people pay with credit cards, you're gonna have to figure out a percentage to charge them that accounts for your fees, right?
What I would also like to add, Pat brought it up, is we're gonna come up with some guidelines, we're gonna have an agreement, a contract, and we can change that.
We can
And,
change it every month.
As soon
if
as we
want.
find out we've got
You know?
a problem
Right.
with it, we're gonna
Right.
change it. First time we get stung, we're gonna
Right.
change it.
Right, just cause we get stung once doesn't mean we're gonna keep getting stung, we're just gonna
So we're
change the
flexible
policy.
there, you know, we're. Chuck,
I think going forward, and maybe we're at that point in our discussion tonight, we should establish a target to have this thing completed by, because we'll get into the construction piece and when that's gonna be completed. So I think we should establish that, and whether we hit it or not, but at least we have a goal to attain. And then how are we gonna take all this documentation and finalize the document? Is that, we all take this home and we mark it up and we come back next month? Or do we have a small committee that stays this and focuses on all this?
We need to.
Or do we have,
solidify
a half a day meeting, we all sit around and go through this thing and get it done? There are choices to choose, but we gotta have a deadline, and we have to find a way to take all this information and get it documented in a fairly short period of time, 60 days, I would say.
Well, we don't have to open up, this all revolves around rental of the facility. We're gonna be doing other things, I mean, that's not the only thing that we're gonna do with the facility, is rent it out. Right, I mean, so Mary could start her senior lunches, and we can have, I mean, granted, I know we need to get this done very, very soon, but it does just cover the rental piece, and we are doing things other than renting it.
Can you give me an example other than renting? Who would use it?
Mary having her senior lunch once a month,
Red Hat Society.
yeah, like any township sponsored
Historical
led
Society.
activities.
And the activities that we told the grant people that we could do.
Right, right. And that would also include the, like, that's why I had, like, in terms of the priority of scheduling, township-sponsored activities, meaning like Mary-led activities, or Mary-facilitated but volunteer-led activities. Like, if Mary has somebody teach a yoga class and she's there, and the volunteer teaches the yoga class and nobody gets charged, we can, I mean, that's like what we wanna do the most, you know, but obviously we've got this nice place and we want the community to be able to rent it also.
so, back to what Chuck is saying, we've got some research. First thing we need to do is have a contract. We currently have sports contracts, we've got examples of community center contracts. I think what we need to do is what you were doing is take a good one and then run it past Tom, make sure it's bulletproof, and then we're ready to go with the contract. The rates, Elizabeth has a rate schedule right here, so, I don't know where it said the wedding, what did we put for weddings?
Weddings were, basically Saturday wedding, resident $1,500, non-resident $2,000.
And those are the same numbers I had, coming into this meeting from talking to other venues, cause they basically told me, don't you dare rent it for less than that, because you've got beautiful new facility. So I think.
Yeah, I mean,
Cause we're way under what
the
they
Saturday
would rent it for.
package, at Williams Tree Farm is $59.40.
Yeah, so we're a bargain.
We're still a bargain.
We're not quite as flexible and.
Three times the number of people in Ohio's though.
But let me just be a devil's advocate here, because we just ran into this. We had a wedding that was happening at 2:30, and, we wanted to go and decorate, and there was something going on. We couldn't decorate Friday night, cause there was something going on. We couldn't decorate Saturday morning, cause there was something going on. That's where your birthday party is going to interfere.
But if you.
Because if you're getting married at 2:30, you don't wanna decorate at noon. Because that ain't what's on your mind at noon.
Right, this is a reason not to rent then you go to Williams Tree Farm. I mean, I think that, we need to, we only have limited options, like, right? I mean, you
Okay,
could.
no, I'm good with that.
If you wanna
I think we only wanna
completely-
cater to weddings so much.
If you're $1,500 for the entire Saturday, we're gonna be booked from April to October, every Saturday, every day a wedding on Saturdays. So is that what we want? I don't know, we're gonna be there
I'm
at a
just
bargain
telling you-
price,
I'm
at a
just
bargain
telling you
price.
that, this wedding was
And-
going off at 2:30, and we were decorating, us that didn't even know what the bride wanted, because she's long gone. We were decorating, and we're like, okay, I'm hanging this here, and I'm hanging this here. We have no clue what she wanted, and she's long gone because she's
Planned it very well.
what?
She didn't plan it very well.
Well, no, the Aldeans did not tell us, I'm sorry, the venue was gorgeous, Tom, and I'll tell you, it was gorgeous, but they didn't tell us there was something going on Friday night, nor Saturday morning, and we get there, and it's like, we were told we could decorate, we were.
Oh, see, we would not tell people.
Right,
Unless we.
you
do.
gotta, communication's gotta be there.
Listening to this, I think we could be overwhelmed and swamped. So maybe an option would be for Saturdays, you don't rent every Saturday for a wedding, you keep at least one Saturday a month open for something else that people wanted to do. I mean, otherwise, I think you're right, we'd be swamped, booked solid for, I think you have to keep some of those days open. Just don't let them fill it, say we can't do it, we got other things going on here, and they'll have to pick and choose when they can do it.
I agree. So my recommendation, I know we're getting close to 8 o'clock, we don't have a time limit, but my recommendation is that Elizabeth, myself, and Mary sit down, go through these documents, come to the next meeting with a custom-made Roscoe Township, document, and you do the contract, and we'll do the fees and rental fee and usage policy, something like that. And we can all look at that and go through that in a board meeting.
We can always have a special meeting if you don't have to be done,
Yeah.
So, because this takes a little longer than normal, maybe a different night would be, we could all, when everybody, see when
I think
everybody
that's a
can
better
come.
idea.
That way if you're here a little longer, it don't matter where.
And I'm a big fan of not reinventing the wheel, so if you find a good
Yeah.
contract, if the park
Oh,
district has a good
So,
contract,
like-
Calpine has a good contract, all we have to do is tweak it.
Yeah.
And I review the tweak, or redline it a little bit, that's a lot easier on you guys and on me, and cheaper from an attorney's
Yeah,
standpoint. And then you attach as exhibits the fee schedule, and you attach as exhibits the rules of cleanup, you attach as exhibits the, there are a couple of different ways to do it. So, I don't know exactly how all these venues do it, you're looking at it, but just, find a good one and make your handwritten notes or tweak it, and then I can go from there.
Alright,
Dawn, I feel like you wanna say something, you were trying to interject in there.
I forgot what it is.
You were,
I know one of the first things Dawn has to do is keep us in the grants. There's guidelines for the grants,
Well,
and I think maybe a phone call to the grant administrator to make sure everything we've talked about tonight is good with the grant, cause it's our building, but we were funded supported by a grant, so we gotta keep them happy. I don't know what they can do to us, but.
I think if
They
we,
take
we
away
do
our
some
funding.
things that comply to the grant,
Or
and
they
other
can
things that we
pay
open
us
up to the
back,
community,
yeah.
I think we'll have a good
So-
balance.
I expressed about some of my concerns about how we are, I feel like we're just moving too fast. And we don't have good stuff in order yet, we don't have feels, we don't even have, occupancy. You know, even when we get in there, you know, we need toilet paper, paper towels, and tables and chairs, and, I just feel like, and I know, we're all excited, we are all excited.
Tables and chairs and audio visual too.
Yes, and we have to have that, we said we would buy that stuff. So I just feel like everybody's moving really, really fast, and we don't have things in order. And, you know, in the grant, we said we would have programming for all ages. We sold it on having the SMTD
right.
bus, and what I've been hearing for nearly 2 years is weddings and meetings, and
Yeah.
what the board really ought to be doing, in my opinion, besides looking at these policies, is you need to be looking at developing some programming.
Developing some what, Tom, I didn't hear that.
Programming.
Program, okay.
And we've been collecting input from the citizens for quite a while now. And I think I mentioned this before, what we're seeing is that people want social stuff. They want cards, they want movies, they want games, they want coffee clutch, meeting for lunch. So we need to figure out how to figure that out. Now, Tom and I discussed today, because in the grant, it does mention that the facility has to be open to the public during operational hours. So we can have our weddings and special events, but you guys gotta decide what your operational hours is going to be.
So it does say that we need set operational hours.
Is
It
that?
doesn't
you-
say we have to have set operational hours, it just says, there need to be operational hours. It could be Tuesdays and Thursdays.
They have to be scheduled though.
It doesn't
Like
say
posted
they have to be
somewhere?
scheduled,
Okay.
but the implication is you're gonna have operational hours.
So Mary, what is your thought about when you want to be there? If you were,
Well, I
or
don't know
have
what
we
the,
discussed when you should be there? I mean,
We haven't-
not that it's
Well, wait a
necessarily
minute,
just
I
up to
just
you.
want-
We're
I
gonna
wanna-
get the dang thing
wait a
going.
minute, I wanna throw this at Tom. Do operational hours say that somebody has to be in the building?
No.
Because operational hours here at Roscoe Township are basically 24/7.
I think you would view operational hours here, Monday through Thursday, 8 to 4.
You would do normal business hours, because operational hours, even though we're plowing
It's winter,
on
you
roads at like
on-call hours
midnight,
don't count.
1 AM.
Just
Winter
because
pants,
Yeah,
when
you
used to
wanna
work.
do normal business
That's what-
hours.
Those are operational hours.
Cause I answer that phone when it rings.
I know, don't tell people.
Except for when I call.
Well, everybody knows that, my phone is posted all over the place. I mean, if somebody dies, they do not die Monday through Thursday.
And that's a luxury that our
They
township
die on
has.
Wednesday, you're gonna like put them to a Friday?
And Mary, and
Call
don't get me
that.
wrong, that's a luxury we have with you in that position for the cemetery.
Yeah,
That
right.
you can take that call on a weekend because
You have a
I
good
don't know
heart.
what the saying is, but,
Yeah,
you
right,
know,
right. Like Mike.
so for funerals
Yeah,
and
because
that,
that one with the mailbox that he says he was really, he owed, I was like, why did I pick this up?
Okay, so we've agreed, go ahead. I think we've agreed that Tom will look at the contract.
Well, you're gonna find the best one you can
okay.
find and then tweak it up a little bit.
Right.
And
Yeah,
then-
that's what I'm saying.
And that is, if we want something really simple and basic, that's just Rockton, which everybody has a copy of. And Tom, you have their indemnification, their terms and conditions language. I mean, if this is like a basic okay thing for people to sign, that's at the back of, that's the last point on
On this, the founders community, this handout right here, Tom.
It's actually on both of them. It's on both of them. It's on the Founders Park Community, the whole, all the bullet points, all our discussion points, it's on the back pages of that one. Plus, it's on the back pages of either the Rockton, actual Rockton contract, or the one that I edited to Founders Park.
And
So
can I ask
if that language is okay, I think there's two other things that I really wanna make sure we decide too, and that is, we do not want this statement about, like, that Roscoe Township has, where they restrict the use of the premises to public or private events and are not as intended as a business venue. The charging of admission or use as a profit-making venue is restricted. We don't want any statement like that,
I
right?
don't know. Does that protect us, Tom? If we
I'm
had
sorry,
that kind of
I was
statement?
trying to find it as you were reading, where are you reading?
Yeah.
It's at the very, this one at the very top, underneath scheduling, underneath priority, regarding
Protects us,
for-profit.
then yeah, we want that language.
Roscoe Township is the only one that I found that had that type of statement.
Because they said, wasn't it that they wanted $1 million insurance policy if you were gonna charge to get into an event?
Oh, there was something like that. They had some weird,
Yeah.
they're
But if
odd.
we do that, we want this.
So, what we need to do is probably just ask anybody, I mean, if they say, I don't know what kind of event you would have that might charge, but I would just probably say, we don't have the right licensing or whatever, and we can't do that for you.
Or you and Ron
Yeah, are we
really
going
can't
to let
enforce that.
anybody rent this
You know, it's like,
space
what-
and then charge people
There's
to
something.
be there? We do wanna be able to rent the space for selling things, because we want to be able to have craft shows and farmers markets and whatnot. How do we
That's not-
distinguish
So
between
give me-
that and somebody, I guess, wanting to like sell life insurance and collect premiums at the event or something like that?
Okay, so I was just gonna ask for an example, so life insurance premiums.
I don't know, like,
No, this was like,
That's a good, that's
let's,
a great topic.
because those kind of organizations that are like selling services like that, I see them in like coffee shops or something, like they invite people there and they're, like, it's a financial planner or somebody and they're selling some kind of
Do
professional
we
service.
endorse that? Do we
No.
cut a rate for that? Do we, that's something
So we
we've
would
gotta
need to
figure
find
out.
a way to allow craft shows, allow selling some things but not other
yeah,
things.
but they're not gonna charge the people to walk through the door. This was events that actually charged people for coming in. Like, all I can think of is maybe a biker's rally of some type of, you're gonna pay $10 to go in, and they're gonna have food.
We
and
just had a
whatever.
card show right over here at this church. They charge you $3 to come in.
So that's something, yeah.
So,
something that
one
we
of
need
the
to figure
things
out.
that we had talked about when we were talking about wanting to offer programming, and we specifically talked about this, if somebody didn't want to volunteer to lead a class, but they wanted to have the class there and they pay the rental fee to rent it from us, and then they charge people to attend the class, we talked about doing that as a way to provide programming without us having to pay the teacher and us collect the fee from the students. This would definitely apply to that, and so do we wanna allow that? There's so
No,
many
you're
issues
absolutely right.
involved in this. Money, no.
Again, I said, we could probably stay here until 10 o'clock.
There's a lot to think about.
Again, I'm gonna go back to recommending the three of us set a meeting
But-
as
but-
soon as possible, and then we draft something.
But does everybody have opinions on that? I mean, I don't know if the three of us
No,
just
I don't-
making
No,
a
this
decision
could go on
on
forever,
that.
I agree.
We
on
should
that.
have a special meeting.
Elizabeth, I
on
think we
this.
can use our collective opinions. You know,
I think they
which is
should
our-
bring a proposal.
Yeah, and bring a
I think they should
proposal
bring
to
a
the
proposal,
group for what we think is best.
We-
And I think they
Do you
trust
have,
us.
are there any
We do that at
legal
a special
opinions
meeting.
regarding those
Well, we
specific
We
points
would
that I
get
just
it
mentioned?
to at least a better document than we
I
have
think you
tonight,
can do
and
all
then
of
we
that.
would do a special meeting.
Okay, legally, we
I
can
think
do all
you
of that.
can do all of that.
Okay.
It's-
You need to,
The
because
question is,
my new
should
side
you do
gig
all
is
of
gonna be underwater basket weaving for like $700 a head. I'm gonna teach that class. So, yeah, you need to put a policy in place.
And then the other question is, are we okay with treating all nonprofits that meet our criteria the same? So, do we want to be able
As
to
soon as I
give
learn how to
the
do
Historical
underwater basket
Society
weaving, I'll invite
any
you.
special nonprofit status?
Well, I'll keep us in line with what she's been talking,
What do you mean?
for community involvement
As far as what?
as far as our meetings.
Do you wanna have our historical society meetings there?
We could.
But we wouldn't want you to.
I'm not paying for it.
So what, that's one of the things that Plainfield Park District, well, actually, it's Plainfield Township, they have actually 6 classifications of rental users.
You know,
But having different classifications would provide a way to let a specific organization that is working to advance the development of the park, advance the private funded development of certain aspects of the park, to let them use it for.
No,
Let's hang all of these things are gonna be discussed at the special meeting when we nail down everything. And I think we need to cut this down to what we come up with, the best recommendations we can, and then we can go through this for hours, because we can just keep bringing stuff out that is better discussed when we have this as our only item on the agenda.
Okay, so we're gonna have a special meeting, cause I think it's important to get everybody's input on all of this, and not just a few people.
Let us go through this and,
I mean, I'm not comfortable making,
yeah, we're not making these, we're just gonna put together what we think is the best document from what we've got here.
Okay.
You're right, 100%.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Or, you know, again, we could, when we meet, we could say, hey, this is where we really need to focus, is it this or this? And then we narrow things down the best we possibly can for decision making at a special meeting. Otherwise, we go on and on.
Thank you everyone for what you did.
I just have one little thing to say. When you guys were talking about the Historical Society going out there and meeting, I don't have an issue with that because you guys are mostly here. But I don't want Clearwing to hear that there's meetings out there and they're gonna wanna meet just like we let them use this room. This is the meeting room.
I was actually gonna mention that, is, you know, we have groups that already meet in this room, and we should keep on meeting in this room.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
I don't see any
right.
reason why, just because there's a bigger fancier building, that
And we've met at the historical
we got
society.
to
house.
And-
a little bit.
I
What
think
do we
what
charge
Chuck
them?
and Elizabeth have
Not sure
said
anything.
so far
Okay.
is to move those conversations to a committee. That's what I thought I heard. So they're outside of this meeting.
Yeah, then they'll bring it back to the whole board.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I do
That's
think
what I
we wanna
understand.
try to, well, I also think we need a better policy for renting everything that we rent. I mean,
We don't even
Kelly
rent
Myers.
this room. This room is just, this room's always been open to the business.
Yeah.
We should have a contract though for people who use, groups that use this room for free. They should sign something. Do we have them sign something? And the pavilion at Kelly Myers too. And then we're gonna have obviously another pavilion. that we're gonna-
We're still charging $10 to rent that pavilion. That
Yes.
price was set back in like 1990.
That pavilion though also has a form saying if you pay like $20, you can have alcohol. And we need to get rid of that.
I got $20.
So Elizabeth, what else on here is
Cause it
a
doesn't require
priority?
insurance. I mean, that's like totally.
So
I'll have to
Elizabeth,
ask my wife. I think
on this,
25.
Steve, one at a time, I got the floor. On here, you were on the agenda tonight, and I'm not gonna cut you short. What else on here needs to be discussed tonight that would not be appropriate to have in this subcommittee that you're gonna get together with in the next week or two?
Nothing, except just read through it, everybody just read through the pricing and the comparative pricing, read through the rules and think about what you think about each point, and just read through it and think about some of this stuff before the next meeting,
So everyone has.
before this
homework.
special meeting.
Are you
Everyone
setting
has
a
one.
special meeting?
We should set the special
Yeah, let's
meeting
do
date,
that.
yes.
I assume a Wednesday, a few weeks out.
How far out you guys are?
How much time?
Our next regular meeting is on February 8th. So I would suggest in a couple of
2
weeks.
weeks, right between.
So that would be
Is
the
that enough?
25th.
Is that enough time for you, Elizabeth, to?
So do you want me to be at that meeting with something basic like the Rockton contract with what I think you guys are gonna want the rules to be? And
Yes.
then I can just adjust that as necessary. Okay, I can do that.
I think.
Yes,
what
and
we-
I can do that by the
I
25th.
think what we'd like to do is have a contract, some cleaning and so forth addendums to it, that we can actually approve. I'm sure it'll take some
Subject to
tweaks.
then my review, or if you wanna send it to me before that meeting. But I
Maybe-
think I can look at it after
That's
that
the time that the three of us will be first. In other words, we're gonna sit down as a group of three to come up with the documents that we need, right? To narrow all this down, and then come to the
Well,
morning, the,
Special.
I just
special
don't
meeting
know
with that information.
how many meetings I can do in the next 2
Just,
weeks.
all I would talk about is just one between the three of us.
But we're doing another, it can't be at all next week.
2 weeks.
Eat it quick here.
Well, you're not talking about the public meeting, are you talking about the small meeting?
Yeah, just the three of us.
Yeah, I just don't see
Public
what we're
meetings
gonna
are
accomplish at the small meeting. Cause we wanna make sure that everybody has
But
input.
you wanna do it all on your own? I would like to have input into that.
Right, I wanna make sure everybody has input.
Okay,
Into everything.
time out. Again, I think we need to have some preparation of documents before we come to the special meeting
Right, I will
And
prepare
that's-
the documents.
by yourself.
Yeah.
That's my point. I would like to be involved in that process, because
So-
Mary and I should be involved in that process.
So,
So are we bringing a computer and preparing I mean, like,
He wants to have a separate meeting before the 25th
Yes.
with the three of you.
So you can iron out all your details.
Yeah, bring your
but we're
resources.
ironing out the
Yeah.
details at the special meeting.
It takes
Well,
too
no,
long.
you're
That's-
right.
We wanna minimize, well, let's put it this way. We wanna prepare the documents from what we have today, tonight, to a better concise, what we talked about tonight. So when we come to that special meeting, we've done our due diligence, so we're not starting where we left off tonight.
Okay, I don't have
I got
time
cut.
for another meeting
Yeah.
in the next 2 weeks.
so in the past, and I think Tom will vouch for me, a lot of the resolutions and ordinances and things that we have passed, Mavis and I wrote them. And we basically copied and adjusted and then
Right,
sent
and I
it
can
to
do
Tom.
that.
And he went, no, yes, add this, this is it. And I think that is what you need to do. But I think what Elizabeth is saying is that she would like to do the draft, because she's already got all this stuff on her computer.
All here.
And then you guys get together and you X your her draft.
Redline.
Is that,
Redline.
am I wrong
It'll
here? Right?
basically have, I can come in 2 weeks with a version like this for us, with every rule that's in here, with the prices that are in here, and everything, I mean, basically everything that needs to be in there, and then we can eliminate what we don't want. I guess if anybody has any thoughts about things they don't want, I really don't have time to do a lot of extra meetings. I can't,
I'm only talking one.
I can't.
You can't do one more between now and 2 weeks?
I mean,
Did you guys,
it's swamped.
Did you
I guess
Chuck, she works full time.
you can, yeah, I mean, I'm really, really busy, and
Can anybody fill in for her?
yeah, I mean,
Like Dawn or somebody?
and his dad
do that.
That's why I handed this stuff off.
so,
So here,
Okay.
okay, let me throw out one more thing. Can you do your draft and send it to the committee for their
I could do that,
adjustments,
I
red
could do that.
lines, additions?
I could do that.
That's how I have done it in the past, where I would write something up and whoever
I
I'm
can do
sending
that.
it to would strike it out or add red words saying, I think we should add this. Can you do it
I
that
can
way?
do that,
And then we can have something in 2 weeks.
That'd be
I
awesome.
can do that.
We do
That'd be
that?
awesome.
That would work, and I appreciate that, Elizabeth, because you've done a lot of this,
It's just a lot of work.
and there was a committee, so it fell on you, so thank you for what you did.
Thank you.
And in no way is this board trying to point fingers and saying, we need more and more meetings. You've spent enough time on it. Summarize what you have, we all
I'm
kinda know
busy.
what we want.
I've
So,
gotta sleep sometime.
If you're able to summarize it, Tom can then prove it from a legal standpoint. The committee of Mary and Chuck can redline it and then bring it to the special meeting and we're good to go.
Yeah, so I can commit to having that to Chuck and Mary, by, well, probably a week from today. And then we meet 2 weeks from today. Does that sound
So-
right? Okay.
Wednesday, the 25th at 7, we're having a special meeting, so
Yeah,
you'll
we
notice
make
it,
that.
you'll notice that out as a special meeting. Yes, I
Yes.
can make that.
And that would be the one and only thing on the agenda.
And at that special meeting, we are approving the contract we are approving the rental rates, we are approving, because we want it all done. What else do we
Yeah, but
need?
You
Contract
may not
rental
be
rates?
People do
approving
need-
it, there'll be an input, that'll be
Right.
an input day.
Right,
There may be some, cause some
if
of
you
these.
guys don't like it, we're
some of these
changing
guys,
it.
you
If
may
you
not
guys
have
don't like
seen
the
it.
prices, we're changing them.
So this is gonna be discussion.
You're gonna have a more focused set of documents to look at, and say, I like that, I like that, I like that, hey, let's tweak that, I like that, I like that, to create a.
And if anybody has any comments about what is here, email them to me. If you
Yes.
look at these prices and you say, like, this is insane, email me and tell me this is insane.
Send it to me in a week too, so I can look at it.
Yeah,
And I was gonna say, can you copy me and also?
Actually, it would be a prime time to go from the 25th. Okay, we want this to be changed, we want this to be changed. Now, the 8th, we have a firm document and we.
Oh, at our next meeting, right, yeah.
We could vote on
Yeah,
it, you
that's, I
guys
think,
could vote
that's,
on
I
it.
think, a good idea.
If everybody loves it on the 25th, we could vote it we could approve it on the 25th. If we need to have changes, we'll approve them on the 8th.
Get amended.
Okay.
Oh, that was quick.
That was some.
You
Yeah.
sausage making degree?
Okay,
Single purpose special meeting.
alright, we move on.
Sorry I was late.
Got budgets. Okay, security, Founder's Park, didn't know we had an issue there, but,
It
I
was-
guess it's pre-planning for what we're gonna install.
You can just lay that over, because we just discussed putting it on the agenda for next time, and so I just.
Okay, we'll lay that
We
over.
can lay that over.
Okay, and I assume what you meant by that was, smoke and fire alarm and, CCTV cameras,
Now.
whatever we can afford, which might not be cameras, might just be smoke and fire.
You know my readers, Bob?
You can get the light bulb one, you just screw it in for
Yeah.
$40 and then you
Like
got a
smoke
motion
detector.
Oh, Rick knows all about the light bulb
That's all
ones.
camera. That's it.
We were
I
watching
got
our
one
house from
in my
Rocco.
stocking.
2 weeks.
$40.
Okay, on to reports, highway commissioner report.
Nothing to report. Sorry to
Okay.
deflate you.
I always say, how much under budget are you, that we're not plowing and
Well,
something?
that
Oh, yeah.
No.
4-foot snowstorm that ended up being
No,
a 1-inch
report.
snowstorm.
No report.
What you do
No
about
clerk
that?
report.
Now they.
No.
they're-
Alright, we have no clerk
they're
report,
50th
assessors report, none was presented, township attorney.
No report.
No reports, cemetery report,
No report.
it's in the packets. Historical society, I hate to ask.
No report.
We're on a roll.
Keep going,
Yeah, on
keep
the roll.
going.
I got nothing.
Uh,
So anyway.
Unfinished business, construction updates.
No report.
We,
Yeah,
we did have a meeting this week, so, the only thing added to that, it's looking really nice. And, we have a copy here, whoever wants to see it. There really wasn't anything, except we are waiting on the special, the change order that we had for the paneling. And what was it, couple of weeks?
Couple of
We
weeks.
were really hoping. So, we at that time had thrown out, for other reasons, the date of February 23rd. And Jacob, the gentleman from Scandrulli, he's their estimator, who's kind of in charge. He said, sure, but then their general contractor there, Josh said, wait a second, and so there's a little squabbling, but we're pretty sure we'll be looking at around the 23rd is what they hope to have that stuff installed. It comes from a company in Woodstock, so.
I think the other thing that is worth noting is we have that upper balcony where a lot of the, power, units are,
Furnaces.
furnace and stuff. We're looking at a way to make a more library-like ladder, so it's more secure and safe to get up there than just an extension ladder that's free to flow, so. That's one of the things the contractor's looking at there.
There's 16 furnace filters up there that we counted, Chuck and I went up there. So I don't know if there's a monthly or every 60 days, we don't know. But yeah, we want it to be safe to go up there. Cause that's where
Can we go
the,
up there once a month?
well,
We
we,
don't know.
At least every 90 days.
yeah, so,
Changes seasons.
so otherwise, cause that's where the HVAC units are. There's 2 units up there. So yeah, we gotta have a safe way to get up there.
Spiral staircase.
Now you're getting on my head.
No, we have no time for spiral staircases tonight.
Stand in the
So-
bucket.
Alright, public comments, any public comments?
No comment. No report, no comment.
All right,
Even the
Make a
crowd
motion
wants
to
to
adjourn.
go.
all right, do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
A second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.